Are you tired of overthinking everything that you say and do in a relationship, constantly needing reassurance in order to feel loved and secure, and always being plagued by the fear of abandonment and rejection from the people that you love? Today we're going to be talking about the anxious attachment style, and if you're anxiously attached, how that might have come about for you, how that might be manifesting in your behaviors, and finally we're going to be talking about specific things that you can do as someone who is anxiously attached so you can start moving towards secure attachment. Hello beautiful souls, welcome back to another video. My name is Olivia and there's a baby crying outside, and I am a confidence and love coach specializing in helping you to overcome limiting self-beliefs and self-doubt and the things that are blocking you in your life so that you can learn to feel confident in yourself and to create a life that makes you feel truly fulfilled on a personal and relational level. Unraveling our attachment styles and course correcting the way that we connect with other people to a more secure place is really foundational for us to have deep and meaningful connections with the people around us and to have a real sense of authenticity and security within our relationship. So how did you become anxiously attached? How does this attachment style form? Like all insecure attachment styles, anxious attachment is formed as a result of some form of abandonment wound or fear of abandonment. It's most likely that when we go back to our roots, and I'm talking like the first 3 to 7 years of your life, particularly the first 3 years, it's likely that someone who has an anxious attachment was receiving an inconsistent level of their needs being met by their primary caregivers. This might mean that you had a caregiver who sometimes would be really attentive and responsive to your emotions and your needs, and then other times would be cold and distant and wouldn't really be consistent. Children who are receiving intermittent emotional support and nurturing develop a high level of anxiety and overthinking as a result. And that's because the reliability on the affection and the love that they're receiving is so inconsistent that they start to get really anxious, anticipating constantly if they're going to get what they need today or not. Early separations and threatened abandonments in the very early years of a child's life will often play a huge role in creating an anxious attachment style. And as a result, as adults, we'll have a heightened sensitivity to rejections, to behavioral changes. They'll be very sensitive to noticing if somebody suddenly pulls away or seems distant, and will be constantly anticipating rejection, constantly anticipating that abandonment to come soon, because every time their caregiver would give them love and attention and affection, they would soon disappear and make space. So whenever the anxious starts to feel a sense of attachment or safety with someone, that they like that person or they're connecting with them, there's also going to be this kind of internal panic where they're anticipating something changing in their behavior, which will make them become distant and pull away once again. And because of this, the anxiously attached person as an adult is likely to have an excessive need for reassurance and constantly will be asking people to give them that certainty that they're not going to leave. People who have an anxious attachment style often will suffer with problems with their self-esteem and their self-worth, and will have a high level of self-doubt and won't really trust their deep intuition and their intrinsic worth very much. Anxious attachment manifests in various behaviors that reflect the underlying fear of rejection and abandonment. This will include overthinking and feeling excessively anxious within their romantic relationships and other relationships, feeling a constant craving for reassurance and validation. Individuals who have an anxious attachment style are highly likely to succumb to people-pleasing behaviors, will compromise their own needs and their own views in order to gain perceived approval from the people around them and to create as little friction as possible so that the people in their lives will not leave them and abandon them. They may also be very perceptive to perceived withdrawals and perceived feelings that someone is disconnecting and making less effort within the relationship, and as a result of that hypersensitivity, they are likely to experience quite extreme emotional highs and lows within the relationship dynamics, as they'll be overthinking quite a lot when they're experiencing people pulling away, but then when someone comes back they'll be feeling like an extreme feeling of being high and excited and feeling really alive because that person's come back into their lives. But then as soon as they pull away, they start to feel anxiety and overthinking and overwhelm, worrying what they did wrong to push that person away. This overwhelming fear of rejection and people-pleasing will tend to create a dynamic where the anxiously attached person will really cling to their love interests and their relationships and try really hard to grasp them and hold on to them as hard as they possibly can. It's important to recognize that these emotions and these behaviors that you're experiencing are not an intrinsic quality of who you are. They're simply things that you learned to keep yourself safe when you were a child. these behaviors and these patterns were the things that allowed you to feel that your primary caregiver might give you more of what you need that they weren't intrinsically giving you. And there's no blame, there's no pointing fingers, there's just accepting that this is just a pattern that you've learned. It's a behavior that has kept you safe for much of your life, and it's allowed you to move through your childhood and those times with a little bit more security within yourself. But just because you've learned those patterns, it doesn't mean that you are stuck. It doesn't mean that you can't change them. And the beautiful thing is that everything within us we can shift and we can change and we can grow into something else. We can recognize that this behavioral pattern that we learned served us at some time and now it doesn't serve us anymore. And it's time to reprogram ourselves with a new behavior and a new pattern so we can connect more deeply with people without a fear of abandonment or rejection or allowing it to damage our sense of self-worth. So why should you seek to change your attachment style from anxious to secure? Well, I think the first and most important reason is because it can be quite exhausting spending your entire life going through this cycle of always expecting someone to leave you, always expecting yourself to be rejected. When you're coming from an anxious attachment style, it's very often that you're connecting with people and you're compromising your authenticity in the process because of a fear that if they see the real you or you express your real emotions and your real needs, that they're going to leave you at some point. So moving more towards the secure attachment style is the thing that's going to allow you to clearly communicate with confidence what you need, what your boundaries are, how you feel, without fearing that being honest will get you rejected. The more we let go of these anxious attachment patterns and start embracing a more secure, calm, and grounded approach to the way that we connect, the more we also start leaning into building deeper self-esteem, true confidence, and self-love. When we start to make choices that put us at the heart of it, moving to a secure place means if someone isn't able to respect us and our needs and our emotions and treat us equally to how we treat them and invest in us equally to how we invest in them, then they don't deserve to be in our lives anyway. Okay, so let's get into how we can start going about building this secure attachment style. So the first and most important step in this process is that we're working on building awareness. Conscious awareness of what's going on within us is the first and most important step, because without awareness, we will always be falling victim to our subconscious patterns and we'll be allowing our emotions and our thoughts to really be controlling the way that we are behaving and carrying ourselves and responding to the things that are happening in our lives. So it's really important for us to learn how to take a step back out of our patterns and be able to observe them from an outside point of view, being able to witness as emotions arise, how it feels in the body, how we talk to ourselves about those emotions, the stories that we start telling ourselves about who we are and how things are going to go. And then as a response to all of that, how we then respond to the situation that's happening. When we're not being conscious and aware, we're not really responding consciously. We're reacting on a subconscious program that we've built in our lives. And that program used to keep us safe. But now we need to start bringing awareness to it and the mechanisms of how that program is working so that we can rewrite it and replace it with something that's more beneficial and that will serve us in our adult lives to build connections in a more meaningful way. So there are some things that you can do that will help you start building awareness. The most powerful that I have found through myself and my clients is meditation practice. Now, I'm not talking about just sitting there and not thinking about anything. It's about recognizing when you're thinking, recognizing and feeling into the body, the sensations, the present moment experience you're having, and just observing it from a passive place, observing it without any judgments or any sense of what you should and shouldn't be feeling or should and shouldn't be doing. It's just pure observation from a place of complete calm and equanimity. Other things that you can do are also journaling, embodiment practices, things such as affect labeling, which is a great tool that we can start using to start understanding our emotions and expanding the vocabulary that we have around them so that we can pinpoint more easily what's actually happening within us as situations are arising that trigger the anxiety to come up. Number 2 is to start developing an honest line of inquiry. This part can be tricky because it's hard for us to admit to ourselves when we're doing and saying things that are coming from a place of insecurity and coming from a place of subconscious pattern. It feels safe for us to be constantly reacting from that place, but if we can start to build on the awareness that we have and we can start asking ourselves really honest questions, or we start to say, okay, well, I'm feeling this way now, I'm aware of what's happening within me, within my mind, within my body, and how my instincts want me to react. But in this moment, can I ask myself honestly, is this coming from a place of fear? Do I feel that this pattern is really going to serve me? How would I respond to this if I was acting from a place of trust rather than fear? Am I overthinking and telling myself stories that maybe don't add up to the full reality? Step 3, actively disrupt the patterns that are coming up. So as we're bringing awareness into what's happening around us, we're more able to catch ourselves when we're in the pattern and about to respond from that place in that moment. When you catch your program trying to push you to respond the same way that you've always responded, I want you to actively disrupt that pattern in that moment and ask yourself, how would I respond to this situation if I was coming from a place of trust and security rather than coming from a place of fear, of abandonment? Try your best to respond from that place. Everything in your body is going to be screaming at you to do what you've always done because it makes you feel safe. But the important thing to remember is you have done thousands, millions of repetitions of this old behavior, like going to the gym and doing bicep curls, and you've made that muscle very, very strong. And your mind and your body are always going to want to take the path of least resistance. Actively disrupting this pattern, you're building a new neural pathway. You're building a new technique, a new skill, and you're strengthening a muscle that has probably never been exercised. So it can be scary at first and it can feel heavy and difficult to move, but if you can make the effort to just consciously keep trying to come back and move in this new way, respond in this new way, over time, that muscle is going to get just as strong as the previous muscle, if not stronger, and it becomes more comfortable over time. Okay, the fourth tip is to start communicating openly about your needs and emotions. This can be really hard because as a young child, when you would express your needs and emotions, sometimes they wouldn't be received. You might have learned from a very young age that expressing your emotions is going to make them pull away and make them disconnect from you. And this intrinsic fear of rejection that you have deep down is going to make you feel hesitant to express how you're feeling and to communicate your needs, because you learned that if you communicated your needs, that oftentimes they wouldn't really be met anyway. The only way that you can start building relationships where people are really going to acknowledge and respect your needs and your emotions is if you start communicating about your boundaries, communicating about your standards, and giving people the space to show you that they're going to either fulfill that or not. It's more important to be authentic about what you need than it is to be compromising yourself constantly in order to get validation from someone who might not respect your needs anyway. Moving into this step of learning how to communicate what you need is so powerful, and it will really help you so much to start building confidence in learning to put yourself first too, and learning to recognize that you also deserve for people to listen to what you need and to respect what you need. Tip 5 is to work on your independence. This is so important because much of the anxious attachment style stems from seeking validation from external relationships in order to feel a sense of belonging and safety and security. You feel the desire to have people around you to constantly make you feel that you're not alone. It's important to learn how to love being alone as well. We really need to start stepping into our independence, learning how to hold ourselves in our lives, to have a life that makes us feel fulfilled and happy. The more that you start investing in learning how to be independent and learning how to spend time with yourself, the more you're going to start to feel secure to walk away from relationships that are not giving you what you need and are not respecting you. And you're not going to be looking to cling onto any relationship that you find yourself into, because you realize that being alone isn't so scary after all. It's actually quite nice to be on your own and to enjoy your own company. Leaning into being on your own also makes you a much more magnetic and attractive person, because you're showing people that you have a rich life that you enjoy and that you're willing to invest in yourself, which is a very attractive quality for high value women that you might be wanting to connect with in a relationship anyway. Okay, tip 6 is to do somatic and inner child healing work. When we experience trauma and rejection as a child, we start to store that trauma and that pain within our nervous system, within our body. And that nervous system stress that is being held onto over time can really cause these behaviors to become much stronger, and it will cause us to have moments of anxiety or overwhelm and have these emotions that we just lose control of completely when certain situations trigger us to remember those events that happened in our childhood. As much as we can do the mental work, we can talk ourselves out of thinking patterns, and we can actively be breaking patterns with practical action. It's really important that we also do that inner child and somatic healing work. Now, this is doing things like breath work, embodiment, arguably things like yoga and acupuncture and massages are also beneficial. Doing this work allows us to let go of emotions that we've been holding inside ourselves, and allowing ourselves the compassion and the time to let that child cry about the things they need to cry about, to face the fears that they were afraid to face, and for you to hold space for yourself and accept yourself even in the wake of those difficult emotions that might come up. Tip 7 is to start building your self-esteem. This means investing in your life, investing in creating a life that serves you and makes you feel positive. The more we can start working on building deep self-esteem and understanding our own internal intrinsic value that we bring to the table, the easier it is for us to not cling onto relationships that come our way, because we're happy to wait and give ourselves space to meet someone who's actually going to meet us at the level that we deserve to be met. Number 8 is practicing emotional regulation techniques. Those of you who are in an anxious attachment style have learned from a very young age to seek to co-regulate. This is very important. It's important for humans to know how to co-regulate, and it's really beautiful that you can be vulnerable with the people around you about what's happening and allow them the space to support you. But it's also really important to learn how to self-regulate, to learn how to soothe your own emotions and be in a place where maybe there isn't someone available who can help you and support you, but you can hold space for yourself and you can regulate those emotions. And it's really important that we start doing this work of learning how to calm ourselves down, learning how to be safe within ourselves, and to trust that we are safe even when we're on our own, to go through uncomfortable emotions of anxiety and frustration and fear and sadness, and that we can hold ourselves within that and be okay with taking ourselves through that journey and being compassionate with ourselves through that journey. And finally, number 9 is to implement self-love and gratitude practices. Take a moment every day in the morning after you've brushed your teeth and you're waking up to look into the mirror and practice saying to yourself, I love you. 10 times I want you to say this in the morning and 10 times in the night before you go to bed. Look yourself in the eye and say to yourself, I love you. And this is going to feel very uncomfortable at first. It's going to feel uneasy and it's going to make you feel kind of icky and uncomfortable and cringy. But the more that you start to do this practice, especially when you're just waking up in the morning, you're in a kind of theta brainwave state. So you're very sensitive to programming on the subconscious level. Over time, do that for a week, do that for a month. It really starts to soften the way that you talk to yourself and think about yourself. When you're making this conscious effort every day to offer love, you already have everything that you need to be worthy of love right now in this moment. Another thing that we can start doing that can help us add to this self-love and gratitude practice is to keep a gratitude journal. So every single day, I want you to just write down 3 to 5 things that you are grateful for about yourself, about your life, about the things that you have in your life. Gratitude has been scientifically proven to drastically improve our sense of life satisfaction and happiness within ourselves. So doing a gratitude journaling practice every single day, even for just 5-10 minutes, has such a huge impact in getting you to really reflect and pay attention to what you have and how lucky you are to have those things. Okay, so those are my tips to help you start moving from an anxious attachment style to a secure attachment style, and I'd love to see where you are in this journey. How are you finding that these habits and tips are helping you to shift to a more secure attachment style? Leave a comment in the section below. Let's have a discussion about it. I'd love to hear how your progress is going on this. And for those of you who are new to this channel and you enjoyed this content, I'm going to be making a lot more videos on this type of topic and helping you to learn to connect with yourself and your confidence in a more real, practical and authentic way. So hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't have to miss out on any of the content that I'm going to be putting out in the future. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Once again, I'm so grateful for the time and energy that you're putting into your work and your development of yourself. The fact that you're just here watching this video shows how much you've already grown and how far you've already come. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.